Will Prime Minister Truss's vision reverse the UK's economic fortunes? Now, since she became Prime Minister, she's declared that tough decisions are needed to change the status quo of the current trajectory of managed decline. Speaking to The Telegraph, Liz Truss remains adamant that slashing red tape for small businesses and simplifying the tax system paves the way for Britain to combat its lack of dynamism. This is despite the constant negative media headlines calling the budget a disaster or a complete gamble on a budget which hasn't even got off the ground yet. Now, this comes as the rebel Tory MPs are preparing to vote against the budget, with former Education Secretary Michael Gove joining the rebels, saying that the tax cuts are not conservative. So, following the conference opening and what's predicted to be a hectic week, today I'm asking, will Prime Minister Liz Truss's vision reverse the UK's economic fortunes? So, joining me to discuss is former Labour Minister for Europe Denis MacShane, and also former Brexit Party MEP Ben Habib. Right, so I'm going to start with you, Ben. What do you think? Of course, Michael Gove joining in on this. He was a Sunak supporter.
Yeah.
Do his actions or words surprise you?
I think the fact that Michael Gove is supporting the opposite stance that Liz Truss has taken is basically an endorsement that Liz Truss is doing the right thing. Michael Gove is a politician of a Cameroonian age. He believes he's not a traditional Conservative. He believes in large state, large borrowing, high taxation, interference from the state and control from the state. He's part of that brigade, and Rishi Sunak exemplifies it brilliantly, who think they've got a monopoly on intellectual correctitude and that they've got all the answers and they will simply deliver to us prosperity. But that's not how it works, and they're fundamentally wrong. The way countries grow is by cutting taxes, by deregulating, and by the way, we are now one of the most highly taxed, highly regulated countries in the world. The way you grow is to get rid of that red tape, cut back taxes, empower small to medium-sized businesses to become the bigger businesses of the future. That's how it works. It's simple. And Liz Truss, thankfully, after 12 years of mistaken orthodoxy with the Conservative Party, Liz Truss, I think, has actually got it. And I hope she stands firm on her agenda and isn't cowed by all the negative press that she's had in the last week.
I suspect a lot of people is in their interest to maintain the status quo.
It is, absolutely. Well, you know, why it's turkeys and Christmas, isn't it? You wouldn't vote for tax cuts if it means a smaller state, if you're part of the state. You know, the state is an organism which wishes to grow and promote itself. And the only way for the country to grow is to actually cut that back and put money in people's pockets so they decide how to spend their money and let businesses thrive.
Some people might argue that would increase inflation. Dennis, what do you think?
I just look at the reaction of Conservative MPs and most of the right-wing press. I mean, Labour hasn't got a dog in this fight. Labour MPs are just chortling, of course. I mean, 7 or 8 days of non-stop negative headlines, culminating today in 2 that really struck me. One in the Sunday Times, that Kwasi Kwarteng went to some party of his old hedge fund. He used to work for hedge funds. And they all said, double down, Kwasi, this is wonderful.
No, that's allegedly, that's not necessarily...
Well,
but we don't know that. This is
Sunday
speculation.
Times is a responsible paper. It has it between quotes. There's no reason to doubt it. It was very interesting. Liz Truss on the BBC this morning asked, did the Cabinet discuss this budget? She said, no. And then she just said it was the Chancellor's budget. So she's already distancing herself from his disaster.
But hold on.
But why
he is the Chancellor. It is the Chancellor's budget. That's his job. Why is that a bad thing that it's his budget?
Look,
it's the fact she distanced herself from the 45% tax reduction. That's the bit that she distanced herself from.
Well, I mean, the Prime Minister's in charge of the country. It's not sort of a budget is cooked up and she just goes along with it. I mean, it was her budget. She's been defending it rather weirdly on local radio and not much better since. We'll see what her speech is like on Wednesday. And I just remember after Black Wednesday, that's to say when Norman Lamont was booted out and we were forced out of the ERM, I was an MP and the mood in the Commons was extraordinary. And I tell you, now, get your reporters to focus, find out when the chicken run starts. That is when Tory MPs, like Boris Johnson in Uxbridge, for example, suddenly start switching and looking for safer seats.
What about, though, the content of the budget rather than the mood? The content, the stuff that was in it, because we are talking about lower tax, less state involvement, less regulation for business. We need to take advantage of the opportunities that Brexit has given us in that respect. What about those things?
We've had
That's what the
6 years to sort of try and make Brexit work.
Well, let's be honest. Let's be fair. Let's be fair, though, because Brexit wasn't really properly completed until 2019, and then we had the pandemic. So, to be fair,
all right, if you think so. I mean, we've lost a third of our firms are no longer exporting to Europe. We've got enormous red tape problems.
But we can remove the red tape. That's what Brexit is allowing us to do.
No, we can remove the red tape anyway. This is made in Britain red tape. I mean, what would actually see, Ben?
There's a huge amount of EU adopted red tape in the United Kingdom. I mean, Liz Truss is absolutely right. For example, and as politically difficult as it might be, to remove the cap on bankers' bonuses. That's a cap on the city's ability to recruit the best people from around the world to work in the United Kingdom. Why would you wish to cap it? The reason the EU put the cap in place was to hold the city back. It was a jealous policy. They used the credit crunch as an excuse, effectively, to hammer, you're laughing, Dennis, but it's true, to tie up the city so that Frankfurt and Paris had a chance to catch up because they're both highly regulated financial markets. No, it's absolutely right. She's right to focus on Solvency II, which is another EU-initiated bit of red tape that ties up unnecessary amounts of institutional capital in reserves. She should get that released so we can get it invested in British businesses. That's what she has to do.
Regulation
the last word, Dennis, we've got about a minute.
Our money, on the whole, has been proposed by Conservative governments under pressure from Conservative savers and Conservative business people, and they want to know rules will be obeyed. And frankly, giving a bung of £45,000 to the richest people in the country when so many people are living under the poverty line, if you think that's good politics, Ben,
which
we can carry on with that, but we'll see what people think. But that's Denis MacShane, former Labour Minister for Europe, and also Ben Habib, the former Brexit Party MEP. Let's see what your thoughts are then. Mason says, always do what you've always done and you'll always get what you've always had. We need a big change of direction or we just drift into eventual and inevitable bankruptcy. Adam says, not on its own, but as part of the further measures, it might stand a chance. These are comments, of course, for Liz Truss's budget. Ronnie says, too many issues for the economy now. We desperately need a general election and for the UK to rejoin the single market. The Conservatives have moved to a right-wing economy with no middle class. Not another election, please. No, we can't do any more politicking. We need stuff to happen.